Good. Okay. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission to order at 7:30. Roll call. Start with you.
Well, Kathy Grant,
Scott Davidson.
Joe Buffalo.
Julie McBride.
Jim McBride.
All right, and seating of alternates. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 regular, you're alternate, right?
Yeah.
You're alternate. Who was
You
seated
was seated last time, so
So Kathy will seat Kathy.
okay,
Just a reminder that alternates can participate in the public hearing.
okay.
Do we have anybody online or? No. No public comment, any additions to the agenda? No. Did everybody get a chance to review the minutes? No, entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second,
Kathy. Any discussion? All those in favor?
aye.
Any opposed? Carries. All right, we'd like to open the public hearing for application 26-1, proposed zoning amendments for Public Act 25-1. I assume, John, you're gonna present. Although we.
Sure. Yep. Let me share the screen. So everyone hopefully has a copy of the proposed amendments to the zoning regulations. I'll make this a little bit bigger, as well as in the regs or in that packet. I believe Crystal also printed the notes from Attorney Rich Roberts, which we'll go through. I'm going to go through our proposed amendments real quick, and then we can talk about Rich's things. So first of all, can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, because of Special Session Public Act 25-1, which was passed last November, every municipality in the state has to do a couple of zoning amendments. And basically this new law is for these sections is effective July 1st. So if municipalities failed to act as of July 1st, the state laws essentially would take over. And so it behooves us to kind of get in front of this. So there are a couple of areas, and they are basically in two major areas. First is in the area of parking for multifamily developments, in which the state is putting its thumb on the scale and saying we significantly have to relax our parking standards, our off-street parking standards. And the second area is what's called middle housing, which is a type of housing that is defined as basically between 2 and 9 units. It's basically small scale multifamily, which the state is basically saying municipalities have to enable and allow in all commercial and mixed use districts by essentially a site plan review process. So those are the two major areas. And so this is how we are proposing to do this. I'm just going to scroll quickly through. So first is in the definitions. We added a couple of definitions. So on page 3, we added a definition for conservation and traffic mitigation district, which is an area in which the state is allowing municipalities to designate as a special, relatively high density area in which we are allowed to require off-street parking for multifamily housing. And by rule, and the small multifamily housing is 16 units or under. And by rule, this needs to be no greater than 8% of the municipality's square footage or acreage. So that's, and we, as we discussed last time, and we'll go through it again, basically the entirety of the village district and the village district overlay, if you take those two areas, that is well under the 8%. And so we are going to propose to basically designate those two zones as our conservation and traffic mitigation areas, if that makes sense. Oh, and while we're here, I'm just going to note, if you can see me making these changes, one of Rich Roberts's proposed changes is when we reference Public Act 25-1, which was the law that passed in November, it was technically Special Session Public Act 25-1. So where we list 25-1 in the reg, I'm going to add the modifier special session to it. All right, questions about conservation and traffic mitigation? Okay, moving on. In page 5 of the definitions, we're adding the definition of middle housing, which again is those 2 through 9 unit dwelling unit of developments, either attached or detached on a single parcel. So it can be a single building with 8 units. It could be 2 buildings of 4. It could be a little cottage cluster of 6 little houses all on the same lot. We also can call this transit-oriented middle housing, and again, per the provisions of the special act. And then we are also adding in our multifamily definition, mixed-use development definition, right under that, is a mixed-use development may or may not include middle housing development in commercial or mixed-use zoning districts. And that's, again, basically straight from the state law.
John,
Yes, ma'am.
it's Rich Roberts that weighed in on this, right?
Correct.
And he firmly believes that the middle housing can be attached or detached. It can be more than one building,
Yes.
despite how it's written.
Yes.
Positively,
Yes.
only because I have consensus.
Yeah. And as do we pulled 3 of his other colleagues at Halloran Sage, and they all agree.
Okay, great.
So 4 of 4 Halloran lawyers concur.
Great.
Okay, on bottom of page 6, we're adding definition for summary review, which is the state's term of art for what we would essentially call a site plan review, which is a administrative review that takes place, either by staff or the commission, that is non-discretionary, it is non-conditional, and does not require a public hearing. The regulations can still be fairly rigid, fairly onerous, but it has to be an up or down decision. Yes, this meets, no, it does not meet, and no public hearing. And so that's essentially what this refers to. And so at the commission's discretion, you guys could treat this as an administrative approval, like a single family residence, and I would approve it as a zoning enforcement officer, or you can hear it altogether as a commission, but again, not in a public hearing process. Okay, that's it for definitions. In our zoning districts, I'm on page 10 now. We had a couple of changes here. Basically to comply and explain what we're doing with the new state law. So village district, we are calling in the village district section, we are saying the entirety of the village district is designated as a conservation and traffic mitigation district. Again, it's less than 8% of the town square footage. And we want to allow some off-street parking requirement there. So we're designated that there. And in this way, we don't actually have to change the zoning map. We're just designating it. The rural district, we are defining it specifically as a residential district. And this was a question that Juliet and I had asked Rich Roberts earlier, because in the rural district, which again is most of town, where most of you guys live, there are provisions for non-residential uses. There are, some small commercial home businesses, and some other, agricultural-based businesses, such that we wanted to clarify that even though some non-residential uses are allowed, it is still fundamentally a residential district, and so therefore is not subject to the middle housing regulations. So we're clarifying that. Major development district, we're clarifying that as a floating district, so it's not a fixed district, and we're eliminating the word commercial in there. So we're basically saying it's a floating district intended to provide opportunity for major industrial or institutional uses, basically eliminating the idea of commercial development, essentially to clarify that we do not want Public Act 25-1 to apply to this district. And then same as the village district, the village commercial overlay that we talked about, all of that land is also designated as a conservation and traffic mitigation district. So the language in the zoning districts is basically to clarify which districts are in which categories, and then which ones are designated as our traffic districts. And then finally on this page, we're adding the explanatory code SR, meaning summary review, as we just defined in the definition section, and that this use is permitted in the district subject to summary review by the commission or their designee, depending on how you guys want to play it. So it's, again, it's all just definitional.
And essentially, because the village district and the village commercial overlay were the only two zones that.
That is
that
correct.
housing could be,
Right.
now that we've designated them as a traffic mitigation district, it would take them, an applicant would have to submit they can still submit a traffic analysis or whatever to.
Correct. They could, they could a parking mitigation analysis.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the phrase.
I know,
But yes, so if, you know, and we'll get to what our
but they
actual.
really
parking-
could, because we're rural. so.
Yeah. Right. And again, we'll go into this in a little bit more depth, but the danger here for someone building an apartment complex
With no work.
and not providing any on-site parking is, I would say, exceedingly unlikely.
It's not totally impossible.
Okay, so now into the district regulations themselves. In the village district, we added, you know, basically where we're mentioning multiple family units or multifamily. So I'm on page 11 now. We are adding middle housing developments again, because that is the state's term. We are eliminating, we had in our multifamily, you may recall, those of you who were with the commission maybe 3 years ago or so, we had changed these regulations in order to enable the redevelopment of an existing building on a small lot in the village. And that is the current text of footnote 1, where there's a 15,000 square foot minimum per dwelling unit with a maximum of 4 units. That was basically custom written to enable the old tavern on the corner of Church and I don't know, what is that? Tuckett, to be redeveloped. But because of the new state laws, that basically bypasses our regulation that we had come up with, and basically just as of right allows middle housing. So we eliminated that one, and then so I changed the footnote references from 2 to 1. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. And then last on this section in the village district, we added number 30 in the use table. So middle housing per section 10.8.t by summary review SR. And we'll go into the specifics of 10.8 in a little bit. Village commercial, with the only change we're making here is again in the use table. I'm on page 13, item number 12. Again, we're just adding middle housing as an allowable use, because we have to. Rural district, we're not changing anything, because this is rural district we now are defining it as residential, so it is not subject to this middle housing provision. So that doesn't need to change. Same with major development. And then let's see, permitting requirements. I think, let's scroll forward. Where's our next change? There it is. Page 22, section 8. New section 8.4. is summary review by commission. And so this basically defines what it is, what summary review means. And it's essentially, it's non-discretionary. It's basically what I had said earlier. It's non-discretionary, it's administrative. It follows the use table that we just established, again, adding middle housing to the village and the village overlay. You have to include all of the site plan stuff that we are already requiring in section 9.2. So it is a detailed application and it's a detailed site plan, but it needs to be, again, just up or down, not a public hearing, not a conditional, like, well, maybe if you reduce this, or if you added that, or if you changed the color, or if you made it shorter. We cannot have any of that negotiation. So that just defines what summary review is, how it's processed. Questions about that? Okay. Site plan review, and this is, we're getting into the parking. And so this is in section 9.3 G, which is parking, starting on page 24 and going down onto page 25. The parking regulations. So these are the regulations that apply to residential and mixed use development containing residential units. And the primary thing here, and it's a little bit of strange language, the way the statute wrote it, but it basically prohibits our zoning regulations and our zoning commission from denying approval of a multifamily development or a residential development solely for not providing what we deem as sufficient off-street parking. So if the only thing we can find wrong with a residential proposal is we don't think it's got enough off-street parking, the state is saying that is not sufficient grounds to deny it and change your regulatory approach accordingly. And so we added a bunch of language to basically say, again, we can't deny for a specific parking count, for a lack of specific parking count, developments of more than 16 dwelling units, and those within the designated conservation and traffic mitigation districts. So which is to say larger multifamily and those in the village or the village overlay we are allowed to require minimum off-street parking, but no greater than the numbers of one off-street parking space per one bedroom or studio apartment and two off-street parking spaces per two or more bedroom units. So if you've got, a building of 8 2-bedroom units, 16 bedrooms, you cannot require more than 16 parking spots, in other words. And that number actually could be lower if the applicant provides a parking needs assessment, which we detail in little sub C there, where they basically come up with a study and say, oh, look, there's a park and ride lot, 100 feet away, or there is, municipal parking, or there's a municipal field or something where we can find on-street parking. We don't have to park on the site of our apartments. There's something nearby. Therefore, we don't think we need to provide it. The applicant can provide that analysis, and the commission will have to, if the analysis is sound, and produced at the applicant's request or produced at the applicant's expense, that those parking numbers could be reduced. But again, it's basically under 16 units away from the village. So if someone's building a 10 or 12 unit apartment building in the rural district somewhere, assuming we allow that by special permit, we can still, no.
But we don't
cannot.
allow that by.
We don't. Well, I don't think we do. I don't think so. Maybe I'm spinning off a hypothetical that's going to confuse everybody. So, right.
Like family in a residential district. It's
but
not fair.
for instance, we are technically not allowed, even if someone is doing, let's say, a new single family residence with an accessory apartment. So you got 2 dwelling units on a property in the village district, or I'm sorry, in the rural district. I could no longer deny them a zoning permit for not providing parking on site. Again, in Voluntown, everyone's got cars, everyone needs cars. There's no way to get around without them. So the idea that someone would build a house on a lot and not provide any access for parking is a silly possibility. But that's the way that the new laws are.
I'm not sure I agree with the fact that a single family house with an ADU is considered middle housing.
It's not. I'm just saying residential. This applies to residential development, and that would be single family.
Oh, no. Where are you getting that?
From the statute.
Show me
It says
that.
residential developments. It doesn't say multifamily. It says residential.
Middle housing though.
No. So because middle housing is only 2 through 9. This regulation concerns things under 16 or under. And 1 is under 16.
The statute wasn't designed to do anything differently to single family houses.
Well, it did. I'm not sure if I don't know what the intent might have been, but I believe that's how the language is written. It's residential developments.
That's not how any of us are interpreting that. Right, go on, I'm gonna look it up.
Okay, we can pull up the statute in a little bit, but at any rate. And so then we define what the parking needs assessment is. Again, if the applicant for a multifamily development or a residential development believes they don't need as much parking, even the lower numbers that we would require, they can provide this assessment. Questions about middle housing? I'm sorry, parking? No. Okay. A quick change in landscape requirements. This is section 9.5, page 27. in a buffer area, there is sort of a broad provision that the commission can sort of determine how much landscaping is required. But because middle housing specifically is a summary review process and it doesn't provide any discretion to the commission about, you know, we need a little more, we can survive with a little less, that sort of thing. It's not negotiated. So we added the exclusion, multiple family, which is more than 2 units other than a middle housing development, residential development, is, you know, so that is exempt from these negotiated landscape regs. And so those don't apply. And now, so we would go to the supplementary regulations, which would be 10.8. 10.8. The beginning of 10.8, which is on page 37. Yes, ma'am.
Back up. So right there, you're sort of proving my point.
Yeah.
May be required where a lot with non-residential or multifamily, which you're suddenly defining as more than two units other than middle housing development. So there's a difference between multifamily and middle housing.
Wait, you're going back to the exclusion under landscaping?
Yeah, but I mean, more than 2 units other than a middle housing development. Why would we differentiate? Because this is where that
Because
big
middle,
building comes to play.
right, no, because so if you've got, let's say this is landscaping, this is not parking.
I know.
So if you've got a 16-unit development, multifamily development in the village, that would be subject to the commission's discretion on landscaping.
Right.
But if it's middle housing, we do not have discretion.
That was. Oh, you gotta go back to the other one now.
Okay, we will. The 10.8, where am I? So this is on page 37. So again, here, so we're adding, this is for multifamily, and then so we're basically cobbling middle housing onto the multifamily. So we're going with, so again, 10.8 sections A through S would apply to multifamily, except for middle housing, which only has that sort of separate carve out for 10.t. So 10.8.t. So again, because of the state law, we have to sort of pull back on the requirements for middle housing specifically. So 10.8.t, which we discussed last month, is shall comply with the following. And we had very simple standards. Again, relatively small setbacks, 25 feet in the front, 15 in the side and the rear, and 15 feet between structures within the development itself. 2.5 stories, 35 feet, impervious surface at 50%. And then we agreed to a minimum landscape buffer, 5 feet wide, minimum 5 feet tall, or a 4-foot opaque fence to basically provide a little bit of buffering, but this needs to be very specific. So we're very specific about the number, the height, and that sort of thing. And so that would apply to, again, middle housing within the village district itself. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that is it. Let me pull up the statute really quick before we get to questions, and I suppose presumably public comment if there is any. So Juliet, I'm gonna.
I mean, nowhere have we discussed single, duplexes or single family
No.
views as being included in anything having to do with the statute.
So my question is, so Rich Roberts refers to 10.8 and acreage. And I'm looking at this and I'm very confused why we're adding the middle housing to that special permit.
It shouldn't be added to special permit.
That's under the special permit section. That 10 is special permits.
And it's just supplemental.
Supplementary.
Yes, yeah, it's
regulations.
just supplemental. So for instance, we have rear lots there. Rear lots is not necessarily a special permit thing. It's just supplemental regulations.
No, it's supplemental rate and special.
So,
If I might, Juliet, can I just direct
but
your
I'm
attention to the screen?
I'm confused, because if I go in the rural district, I see a multifamily dwellings are by special permit, and it says 10.8, so it falls into that.
Right. But there's-
So we reference, right, and in each of the use tables, Scott, we reference middle housing per 10.8.t specifically. So we go to that section and then we call out that is by summary review. So I don't know, it's kind of paint by numbers a little bit.
Right,
And
while he's here, what section are you in the statute right now, though?
this is
Very confusing to me.
this is section 18, subsection 18. And the way it says is that this is the part of the statutes. This is section 8.2, commissions or zoning regulations shall not. And so
Yeah.
this is basically, they shall not require a minimum number of off-street motor vehicle parking spaces for any residential development, except as provided in section 19.
Okay, and then section 19 is what?
Is the 16, or this is the
So it may.
a municipality may require a minimum off-street parking spaces for residential developments that contains more than 16 units.
Right.
And it says for the under 16 units, where's the under 16 units?
It's a very.
They adopt, yeah, so so a residential development that contains fewer than 16 units. So a residential development, if you're developing a house that is fewer than 16 units.
Oh,
So again, it's awkwardly phrased and
that's where that section is where they're talking about traffic mitigation district. That's not the section. Go to the first paragraph in that section.
parking needs assessment.
Very first paragraph in section 19.
Yeah, except as provided, no shall reject an application for any residential development solely on the basis. Any residential development.
And the but so, yeah, but all the way through there is. It's talking about, okay, no zoning officer. Yeah, but a zoning official can't make the finding that such parking space will have a specific adverse impact on public health.
Why not?
Because you don't have that authority.
If the commission designates it to the official, if they do. And so what it essentially does is it eliminates the ability of the zoning officer or the commission to, if that's the only thing missing, right? If all the setbacks are right, if the height is right, if the septic system is good, if they have the wetlands approval, if they got state highway approval of the driveway, if everything is in place, but they don't provide a parking space.
What about
You know.
short-term rental, which is determined to be residential use?
Yeah.
You're saying that we can't require parking in the short-term rental more than 2 spaces? Ever?
Yeah.
I don't think that would be intent of that at all.
Whether or not it's the intent, it doesn't matter. That's the language. I mean, if you have some way around any residential development, which is pretty sweeping as far as I read it.
Okay, I don't think everybody else is reading it that way.
I mean, that said, I think, this is angels dancing on the head of a pin question. I don't think it's going to come up in Voluntown. Period.
Didn't the lawyers read it that way?
What's that? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're all focused on sort of the middle housing aspect, but the residential development language is pretty sweeping. And again, once you get larger than 16 units, and in our case, middle housing in the village, we can and do require parking. So again, we are basically covered unless some essentially wingnut wants to build a house with no parking access. That's on them.
I just remembered, and I don't want to forget again. Do we have any language about mobile homes in here?
Yeah.
We have
Yeah,
to
it's
change that.
something.
It's in 10-7,
What page?
but it's 37,
Did we change that? With that?
Oh,
7,
hang on.
but it's very,
Vague.
it's gotta be with a bona fide construction project.
10.7. Oh, that's a trailer. That's a temporary trailer, right?
Right,
It says mobile home and trailers.
but we have to allow mobile homes. They are.
Well,
no
we
different.
just don't, yeah, we don't distinguish, we can no longer
change that.
distinguish.
Yeah, could we just change 10.7 to temporary trailers or whatever, because you can't say. In other words, we couldn't limit a mobile home to only be used temporarily. I don't think our regulations are clear on that.
Okay, so here, right, so this is 10.7. So
Yeah.
where we say a mobile home or trailer may be used temporary, so you want to call it
A trailer or what else would you call that?
Temporary home,
Camper
temporary home.
or a temporary home, yeah, because they do have a little home. You can
Yeah.
hold.
Would they
Yeah, it could be a
temporary
tiny
trailer?
home.
Yeah.
I mean,
The health department,
well,
a time.
well, so
fairly
to a
allow
certain extent, so these are
RVs
for,
or homes have to be tied to the septic or even during the circle. I want to make sure that we're clear somewhere in our regs because there was a change in the statute.
yeah,
there.
so actually,
Now
Juliet, what
it's
I think this would be,
what?
Juliet, I think this would actually be in subsection D right here.
Mm-hmm.
We say a manufactured home designed as a single family dwelling.
Oh, here it is,
And
yeah.
so I would actually say, and built in accordance, we would get rid of this section that says, and having its narrowest dimension of 22 feet or more. That
Right.
was the thing that was eliminated.
Yes,
So I would just get rid of that section. So it's just a manufactured home designed as a single family dwelling and built in accordance with federal manufactured home construction, et cetera. That's the difference.
that's the requirement for 22 feet,
So,
the narrow
Uh,
dimension, that was a subtle.
Yeah.
Change.
and so in other words, it's
Anyway.
no longer a mobile home because it is permanently fixed and built to federal standards and, sitting on a pad on the site. It is essentially the same thing as any other single family residence.
Yeah.
So that's a good change.
Well,
All right, so that is
We gotta
the
take out
extent.
You do have to take out having its narrowest dimension of 22.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that is the sum total of the changes that we made based on these requirements. Rich's commentary, he had 3 notes. One is in the definition of traffic and mitigation. We'd want to add special session before public act, which I just did. In section 10.8.T.1, we had the word acres hanging out there, which I don't think meant to be, where it says, this is on page 38, little 1, minimum structural setbacks in the middle housing development acres shall be. I think it just should, middle housing development shall be. So I'm going to get rid of the word acres. I'm not sure where that came from. And then Rich's last comment was, we have the opportunity to include other designer performance standards. And we talked about that. And I think we decided not to, we relatively keep it simple because we really don't have a lot of design standards for any other type of multifamily housing in the village. So we basically wanted to treat this essentially as the same approach. So that's a helpful comment from Rich, but I think it's unnecessary.
We did fix the landscaping to create an effective year-round visual buffer, just the.
To create an effective year-round visual buffer, yes. All right, so I will turn it back over to you, Madam Chair, see if anyone has comments on the commission or if there's any assembled members of the public that wish to testify.
Whole public, and first, does anybody on the commission have any questions? Like you said, it's not likely that, maybe something like the tavern could happen again, but that would be probably it without sewer. Does the housing authority, that development there, what is it, they're on septic?
Yes, they're all in septic and a real nice gusher of a community well.
Yeah. So that would have to be sort of a perfect scenario. Again, the middle housing can only occur in the commercial zone, be pretty limited as the acreage available.
That with that place new, yeah. But
Right. Well, now they wouldn't apply.
Anything about it.
already saw. Really. Oh, it's like,
Yeah, I mean, that is does Voluntown have that in an ordinance somewhere? Do we have a
I'm-
parking ordinance here?
I don't
Yeah,
believe
I
so.
mean, there's a parking.
Do it-
ordinance. No, but
But not
on
in
that,
town.
I don't know of anything.
It doesn't say that you can, so that is something that the town,
And transfer
should it
out
become a
from
problem, all of a
the
sudden, you could enact an ordinance that says no.
Oh, no, on-street parking overnight or
on-street
something?
parking, Yeah.
Yeah, sure, sure. Oh, you know what? We do have a parking ordinance. Let me bring it up. I'm still in Voluntown. And I need to zoom in if I can. There we go. So this parking regulations, this is an in town ordinances. Restricting the number of parking vehicles on all roads. So Parker parking on the street other than temporary. Definitions, Parker parking. Oh, the standing, okay.
eliminate
So-
Thinking, Smith saying,
So no vehicle shall be parked at any time in a manner to interfere with normal flow of traffic while snow plowing. That's fine. Winter parking, parking prohibited during parking bans. Okay, so that's really just winter conditions for the most part.
What was that first paragraph, standing in a vehicle, I'm gonna not.
That's definition. That's just the definition of what parking means.
but
Somebody's living.
yeah, maybe that's.
That's what they could always
Van for the night.
add something to that if they felt it was gonna be an issue.
Temporary.
Yeah, and I think that's it for parking.
We could, I mean, one of these days we'll try to get to this. Like a meeting and. Make sure they know that these changes have been made and they could consider something like that.
And so, Madam,
Nobody's been beating down the door.
So Madam Chair, if there, after the public hearing, if you're going to make a motion on this, the only thing I would suggest is any motion to adopt these would also indicate an effective date of July 1st.
Thank you. All right, so any other comments? Questions? We'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Old business application 26-1, proposed zoning amendments for special session, public act 25-1.
In July 1
With the elimination
of every change.
on 37. No, it was
As recommended by the.
Yeah, that one, the one with the 22-foot wide.
Yeah.
With that thing.
The approved with all changes discussed.
Very complicated.
And yeah, you would eliminate the word acres in 10.8.t, as well as add the word special session to the traffic conservation and traffic mitigation district definition.
And eliminate the language in mobile homes.
Exactly.
With the effective date is July 1st, I can help edit that motion when it gets to you to look at it. Do I have a second? Any further discussion? All those in favor? Right, any opposed? Motion carried. Any correspondence?
No, I don't have any. Crystal, do you have any correspondence?
Staff report?
So not that much in terms of zoning enforcement, just the standard permits. Crystal and I visited some neighbors on Beach Pond Road this morning regarding the creation of a driveway that the neighbors were worried was going to create a drainage problem on their property. And hopefully we talked everybody down. And hopefully the neighbors are in good communicating shape. So it was a minor thing, but they were both freaking out for a couple of days there. Grants, Forge Hill Road Bridge is still going along. They bumped into a problem, and I don't know if we talked about this last time. buried on the Willis Reedy property, which is the house as you're going down Forge Hill Road on the left, closest to the bridge, was an old gas station, apparently, for you old timers. And they found a couple of buried tanks there, which of course, so that created some problems. So we're now in process of doing the environmental due diligence and getting ready to pull the tanks in order to continue with the bridge. So, you know, always delays. On the sidewalk project from basically from the package store up Main Street and Beach Pond Road all the way down to Town Grill. Those plans have been finally approved by DOT. So we are now proceeding to final design on that one and preparing a bid package so we can go out to construction bid, which is great. The water study, we're expecting to have the interim report on the village center area, I believe within the next couple of weeks, and we'll be having a public meeting on that in July. Crystal, is that right? Or Jim, were you guys at the last meeting?
The water meeting.
Yeah.
So-
I saw, I don't know the date somewhere, but it's a lot.
So there will be a public information meeting in July about that, just about the status. And then we submitted a separate grant for the design of a new community building that would replace the red barn out behind the parking lot. That would include all environmental work and engineering and architecture to develop a new like senior services office, a parks and recreation office, storage, commercial kitchen, and community meeting space. So hopefully we'll get that grant and we can, you know, look at upgrading the facility back there.
Did the budget go through?
And the budget was
Nothing
approved.
changed in ours?
No, I don't believe so. Wait, they didn't modify it.
Anything.
Sorry, I wasn't able to even go to any
They
of that.
discussed what changes and why they had the increases and how long it's been since we've had an increase on.
But they hadn't modified our proposal, as I recall.
Nobody said the word like.
Who represented us? Did you go to represent us? Do you do that here or?
No, the first selectman spoke.
Okay, I didn't have to go because I didn't get any notice.
No, he spoke about all the changes in the budget. It's on his budget, yeah.
Was there an address to John's salary being?
It was all in there, yep. They mentioned, they even put it up on a slide and they had line by line. How long
John,
it's
you
been
didn't,
since we've been over budget.
I'm here.
you didn't have to go to that meeting?
No, nobody invited me.
It's a
No,
town
it's
budget.
very,
Town budget, Brian
it's
did it.
literally the selectmen and the board, it's the
I know,
board.
Board of Education, yeah.
And the
And that's it.
superintendent did it.
That's it.
And they don't have questions, they
Board
would
of
just get in
Finance.
touch with you if they had questions?
The selectmen are the board of finance.
Yeah,
So
I know.
They can ask questions, people ask
No, usually we
questions.
have to go present our budgets and all that kind
No,
of
he
stuff.
had them up on there. On the
Yeah,
slide,
And so they could ask questions.
if they wanted to, they could.
I think a week or two, like a month before, the selectmen had a meeting where people could go in and ask
There's a
about
public
the
hearing
budget
for all that, but
before this.
Yeah, well, hopefully now I'll get around a little bit more. Pay attention to
The way that
that.
we were talking about for our budget.
I mean, I know ours was
They
stuff.
were talking about.
I felt badly because I'm like, oh wait, I never got anybody, nobody ever said anything,
So sad.
ever went.
we're done.
You did plan a report, I assume?
Do we have separate? I wanted to just convert it to
It's on
staff
here.
report.
CEO plan a report.
Yeah.
Anything else for the good of the order, so to speak? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make motion adjourn at 8:13.
That's second. I see.
All right.
John.
Thanks. Crystal, we'll have to do a legal
Nice.
notice for the decision. We can talk about it tomorrow.